Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Naruto Became the Dark Emperor Part 5, The End. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
2 months later, South Ikeyama unified Western Empire. Tsunade had returned to Konoha and summoned the council to inform them of Naruto's appearance at the Cage Summit and his delivery of the invitations to the cages in Mifune. With Danzu's support, Sasuke Uchiha was the first to volunteer. Yugao Yuzuki and Asuma Sarutobi also agreed, as his rehabilitation would be completed by then and he would be returned to active duty. Sakura Haruno finished last. Jiraiya and a representative from the Fire Daimyo accompanied Tsunade and her team to South Ikeyama. South Ikeyama was one of the largest cities in the southern region, with a thriving tourist industry. The southern region's largest city had several casinos, geisha houses, and even a brothel. The city was built around a small mountain, which is now home to the continent's largest stadium. It was also the location of the final battle of the Unification Wars, as well as the location where Naruto and Hinata's forces signed the treaty that ended the Unification Wars and ushering in a new era in the West. Tears Point, a memorial shrine built to honor the Unification Wars casualties, was 3 miles away from where the treaty was signed. It was also the eve of the Imperial Kumite, a once-a-year tournament held by the unified Western Empire. The imperial nation invited the best of the best to compete for honor, wealth, and prestige. It made Konoha's preliminary Chunin tournament during Naruto and Hinata's time as Genin look like a schoolyard brawl. The Imperial Kumite was a no-holds-barred competition. Weapons and jutsu were permitted. Bloodline-based abilities were permitted, and the Ikeyama Coliseum was built specifically for that purpose. The previous year, Neji Hyuga and Rock Lee competed in the Imperial Kumite for the first time. To put it simply, they both quickly realized that the fighters played for keeps. Despite reaching the semi-finals, Neji was defeated by the previous year's champion, and Rock Lee by Takeshi Chiba. This time, the former Raikage chose to remain on the sidelines rather than join the fray. This year, however, the Kumite was different in that the tournament was attended by the 5 major shinobi villages. The tournament, however, served a secondary purpose, as it had something to do with Operation Scorched Leaf. The humiliation of Konohagakure no Sato, the Godame Hokage, Fire Country, and, finally, Sasuke Uchiha was the secondary goal. Sasuke would do his part and leave for Otagakure no Sato after this final humiliation. South Ikeyama was also the Emperor's summer residence, with the Imperial Villa serving as the Emperor and Empress Consort's summer residence. Naruto and Hinata spent much of the summer in the southern region, beginning at the tail end of the Unification Festival, inspecting the Pikara merchant houses and visiting the villages. It was half the size of the Imperial Complex but had enough room for the Namikaze clan and their guests. Naruto and Hinata Namikaze had arrived in South Ikeyama with their child, Minato, a week before. Hayashi Hyuga, Hanabi Hyuga, Neji and Tenten Hyuga, as well as little Hisashi, accompanied them. Hayashi had become a respected member of the Imperial Council in the year following their arrival in the West. Hanabi had ascended to the throne of the Hyuga clan and was a formidable kunoichi in her own right. She was even said to be romantically involved with Takeshi Chiba. Neji had been appointed commander of the military police force tasked with protecting Kimen and its environs. Tenten, his wife, was a valued member of Yujito's Hellcats. Hayashi and the council were aware of Operation Scorched Leaf and had given Naruto and Hinata their full support. Apart from the occasional threat from Konohagakure and the Fire Daimyo, they were powerless. When Tsunade threatened to invade both Wave and Spring, Naruto retaliated by threatening Konohagakure's shinobi with the Hiraishin. If his father had killed 300 Iwa shinobi in the previous war, what would happen if he combined the Hiraishin with a couple of shadow clones? Nighttime at the Imperial Villa in South Ikeyama. Although smaller than the Imperial Palace in Kimen, the Imperial Villa was more than adequate for the additional guests. Aside from the Namikazes, Naruto's in-laws and the Ino Shikacho trio paid a visit, with Haku accompanying Ino. Ino was competing in the Imperial Kumite, and her opponent was Sakura Haruno, thanks to Naruto's machinations. This year, Shikamaru and Chaoji did not compete. Gaara is supposed to arrive tomorrow, according to Temari, Shikamaru said as they sat inside the courtyard, Ino and Tenten playing with Minato and Hisashi. The Godame will be accompanied by members of the Wind Daimyo's council. Just in time for the Kumite to begin, Naruto said. Just so you know, Ino continued, Tsunade and the Konoha fire group arrived earlier today. Sasuke was among us, and Asuma nearly got into a fight with Okajima-sensei when he saw him with us. I understand, Naruto replied. The Tengu came to me and personally requested that he fight Asuma and the Kumite, which I granted. Isn't this troubling? I mean, deliberately stacking the deck against Konoha? Shikamaru inquired. I would have the 4 Devas compete in the tournament if I wanted to be unfair, Naruto explained. But there are the other 4 shinobi villages. I really don't have to tip the scales in favor of the West. Inviting the other nations here is nothing more than an act of goodwill, to show the skeptics that my intentions are genuine. That, and the prize money is far too tempting to pass up. Jiraiya has been spotted sneaking around Ikeyama, Hayashi explained. My guess is to look at the competition and see which of the fighters from here and the other villages poses a significant threat to Konoha's victory. Minato, a 1-year-old boy, gurgled in Ino's arms. I wouldn't be surprised if the perv tried to sneak in here, Naruto said. Jiraiya learned from a contact in Spring Country that Koyuki was the godson of Naruto, and Hinata's child, who was named after Konoha's greatest hero, following the confrontation in Iron Country. Jiraiya and Tsunade were both enraged. Tsunade remembered Naruto's threat from the Cage Summit, so they couldn't do anything. If you wish to go to war, I'll be more than happy to oblige you. You are already on thin ice with me for betraying not only my parents, but also the Uzumaki clan. If you declare war on the Empire in some misguided attempt at vengeance, Gaara's desert burial will look merciful compared to what the Imperial nation can do. If you go to war with me, I guarantee that Konohagakure will be nothing more than a memory. Hayashi decided to switch topics. So this is the city where you and Naruto got married during the final battle. He continued after his daughter and son-in-law nodded. You know, just as the last Shinobi War began, Minato proposed to Kushina in the midst of a skirmish with a group of Nukenin. I was there, as your father's former teammate. Naruto and Hinata nodded, seeing how the others were watching with interest. As Hinata began to tell the story, the Emperor took Minato from Ino, the baby gurgling as it took handfuls of his father's hair. South Ikeyama was the final stronghold of the 3 remaining warlords, Hinata explained. We had been fighting long and hard for 2 long years, uniting the West. South Ikeyama was the last. If we won, the West would finally be at peace. If we lost, the West would revert back to where we had found it when we arrived. The 3 warlords, Aboa, Rama, and Jo, were minor warlords, but they combined their forces and fortified the city. The battle raged for 3 hours, Naruto continued, smiling at both his sleeping son and the memory. We had Aboa and Rama surrounded inside the stadium, and it was Kurama, Hinata, Haku, Zabuza, and myself leading the charge. South Ikeyama marks the end of the Unification Wars. Naruto Namikaze and Hinata Hyuga were fighting back to back, with Naruto wielding his Okatana and Hurricane kunais and Hinata wielding her Bikogan and Kukri knives. Nearby, Zabuza Momochi and Haku were engaged in combat with members of Zabuza's Demon Brigade, and Yujiro Nai collaborated with Kurama to defeat the enemy troops. Naruto experienced a flash of inspiration. Fortune favors the brave, Sanchi once said. He spun Hinata around, his Okatana slashing at a samurai. Marry me, Hinata. Hinata would have squealed like a schoolgirl if this had happened at any other time. She would have fainted if she had been a genin. But they were in the midst of a bloody battle that would determine the fate of the West for all time. Now, this isn't the best time, she exclaimed. Are you kidding? Naruto retorted, blocking an incoming blade with his sword and stabbing the offending samurai in the throat with his kunai. This could be the last chance. I love you, Hinata, and I've made my decision. What's yours? Hinata's Bikogan has been deactivated. She had long admired Naruto, and her admiration had turned to love after their exile. He had faith in her and adored her. She loved him back in return. Kurama, exclaimed Hinata to the red-headed woman. Wed us. Kurama had slashed her way through a group of shinobi, impaling them and flinging their bodies away with her 9 foxtails waving around her body as if they had a life of their own. I'm currently unavailable. Naruto noticed Yujiro nearby, fighting alongside Zabuza on a raised platform. Yujiro, he exclaimed as he took Hinata's hand in his. Marry us right now. Now, Yujiro exclaimed. Yes, now, Hinata yelled as she impaled a shinobi with her kukri. Get it done quickly. Fine then, Yujiro exclaimed. Taking a brief break from the fighting, she conducted the impromptu ceremony, while Naruto and Hinata continued to fight. We have gathered here today, dearly beloved, ... to nail your $sign to the wall. Zabuza yelled back, impaling his opponent with the head-chopping cleaver before kicking him off the blade. Naruto reclaimed Hinata's free hand after hacking several shinobi into Western kibble. Do you consider me to be your husband, Hinata Hyuga? Hinata eagerly nodded. Yes, awesome, exclaimed Naruto, just before launching a Rasengan at a shinobi attempting to attack Hinata from behind. Simultaneously, Hinata flung her remaining kukri at another samurai attempting to cheap shot Naruto. Naruto took Hinata's kukri and returned it to her. Do you, Naruto Namikaze? Hinata began, pausing to watch Juyukin strike a shinobi in the heart. Take me to be your wife. You mean the part about health being less likely? Naruto clarified. I do. Great, exclaimed Hinata as more fighting broke out, forcing the couple to fight back to back. As Hellcat General, Yujito concluded, I pronounce you husbandin. She came to a halt as she caught a kunai in the air and tossed it back to the offending party, instantly killing her. You may kiss. She tried again, but was forced to flip off the platform to avoid being attacked from all sides. She tried to speak again after dispatching both of them with Zabuza's assistance. You are free to kiss. She was interrupted yet again. Haku and his ice senbon, on the other hand, had saved the day. The fighting on the ground below intensified as the bot count around Naruto and Hinata grew, forcing Naruto to clear some space with the Shinra Tensei, blowing the attackers back. Yujito and Zabuza turned to face the young couple this time. Just kiss, exclaimed the former Miss Swordsman and the female Jinchuriki. Naruto drew Hinata closer to him with his free hand. After this is all over, I owe you a proper wedding, he said. I'll hold you to that, Hinata said before kissing. After the impromptu ceremony, Naruto concluded, we managed to rout the remaining forces. Aboa and Rama saw that the fighting was futile and gave the order to stand down. A week later, they both formally surrendered, promising not to raise arms against us. With the declaration of surrender, the unification wars were over. Hinata and I had a formal, private ceremony back in Kimen. Tenten, cradling his ashi, was taken aback. That was just ... wow, she could only say. Neji gave a nod. I'll say, he agreed. A wedding in the middle of a battle. That had to be something troublesome, in my opinion, Shikamaru said. If Temari finds out, she'll probably demand to know why I didn't propose to her like you did to Hinata during the Akatsuki invasion. In her last novel, Murasaki Shibuku immortalized our wedding, Hinata said. You most likely saw that scene in Koyuki's previous film. That looked familiar, Hayashi, a fan of Spring Daimyo's films, said. Hinata was handed over to Naruto's grandfather. Please excuse us, Hayashi, he said as he and Hinata rose to their feet. As his son-in-law led his daughter out of the room, Hayashi nodded. Naruto sat in the gardens of the Imperial Villa, enjoying the South Ikeyama night with his wife by his side. It was at times like these that he could forget he was the emperor or a warrior. He was simply Naruto. How about the last time we were here for the first anniversary and Zabuza got drunk and tried to hit on Sana? Naruto inquired. The one where Sanchi chased him with his family sword screaming bloody murder. Hinata replied. The demon of Kimen being chased by a man twice his age. Did I ever tell you I'm pregnant? Naruto sighed and shrugged. Once, he said. Hinata smiled and raised 2 fingers. You should do that twice, love. It then occurred to me what Naruto was saying. Hinata was expecting a child. Again, that's fantastic, he exclaimed, picking her up and spinning her around in the air before setting her down. Hinata will either have a brother or a sister. Meanwhile, Jiraiya had no trouble infiltrating the Imperial Villa. After all, he was Konoha's resident spymaster. Tsunade directed him to look around South Ikeyama and assess the competition from other villages as well as local fighters. Aside from the Western fighters, the main threat was the Shogun of the Violent Lightning himself, Rasu, one of the 4 Devas who decided to enter the contest. Number 2 was Heiei Akajima, with whom Asuma had a run-in earlier that day. Jiraiya snuck into the Imperial Villa after completing his recon mission. As Jiraiya had discovered, there were no guards or other forms of security. When Jiraiya and the others arrived in Kimen a year before, the Imperial complex was crawling with shinobi and samurai guards. There were none at the Imperial Villa, probably because the Gaki doesn't believe anyone would dare to break into his home. Jiraiya reasoned as he watched Naruto and Hinata from his hideout within the gardens. What kind of ruler is he to be without any kind of protection? Jiraiya, on the other hand, had forgotten who he was dealing with. Jiraiya had no idea that the Imperial Villa was guarded not only by Imperial guards, but also by a series of seals that served as a first response alarm to any intruders. This is where Kurama comes in. Hello, old man. A woman tapped Jiraiya on the shoulder, causing him to flinch. He slowly turned around, cursing himself for being caught. And found himself face to face with Kurama, the Biju queen cracking her knuckles and flashing a fang grin at the one-armed pervert. Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? Kurama asked, chambering her arm back and Tao. Jiraiya was launched on an impromptu aerial tour of South Ikeyama after a chakra-powered fist collided with Chin. Naruto and Hinata stood in the gardens, watching Kurama emerge from the woods. Naruto was aware that Jiraiya was present, which is why he dispatched Kurama to intercept him. So, Naruto started, "Where did you send the old pervert?" Kurama's grin broadened as she responded. The Blue Dragon Resort was a hot springs resort on the city's outskirts. The Blue Dragon was a brothel before it became a hot springs resort, with the owner being a former madam who realized that tourism was more profitable than flesh. Of course, that meant more business for the other brothels, but that was how things usually worked. The Blue Dragon, like most of the inns and hotels, was packed with visiting dignitaries from all over the region, with the White Destiny reserved for visiting cages and their shinobi from the east. Murasaki Shikabu, the West's most beloved poet and romantic story writer, was surrounded by Mei Terumi, Kuretsuchi, Benisato Mochizuki, Sana Sanchi, Yujiro Niai, and Kasumi Ehara. She was born poor before the arrival of Naruto, and Hinata as Fujiwara Tekako. She had caught the attention of a local warlord with her short stories when she was 15, and he had given her a job in his court. She married his son, a samurai, when she was 19. That happened 16 years ago. Her husband was now a respected official in charge of maintaining order in the Shinjuku region, and she was a well-known author. The Empress consort was a huge fan of her work, and she had met Spring Daimyo Kazahana, who had used some of her works in a couple of her films because of the emperor. Murasaki was well-liked and respected throughout the empire. Murasaki was telling her company a story from her childhood when a white-haired, one-armed toad sage screamed from the skies, splashing into the waters after being forcibly ejected from the imperial villa via Kurama's fist. When Jiraiya crawled out of the water, the killer intent washed over him like a tsunami. He'd been caught peeping before and was belted with a slew of wooden buckets. Instead, he was confronted by one enraged Mizukage, one enraged blonde Jinchuriki, her battle aura taking on the form of the Two Tails, two royally irritated granddaughters of the Tsuchikage and the legendary samurai, the latter already having drawn her sword, one less than amused Snake Queen, her snakes coiled around her body, ready to strike, and one enraged rider. Jiraiya could only whimper as the angry women closed in, anticipating the inevitable beating. The imperial villa from within. Shikamaru paused mid-drink and turned his gaze elsewhere. "Troubling," he said. "What is it?" Hanabi inquired. "I sensed a disturbance," the sluggish Nara replied. As if a man screamed for mercy and was silenced, "I'd bet my mission salary that the annoying bastard irritated a woman ... or several." Neji shook his head. "He's better than us." Shikamaru laughed as he lifted his cup. "I'll raise a glass to that." Somewhere in Ikeyama, in another inn, Tsunade was drinking sake from a broken sake cup. "How come I have this strange feeling that Jiraiya has done something stupid yet again?" she reasoned. Returning to the Blue Dragon, Jiraiya's mangled, broken body was embedded in the rocks. Hurt, he could only manage to say. He'd be taken to the hospital, and Tsunade would be informed of the incident ... and charged for the damages. Ikeyama Coliseum. Ikeyama Coliseum was the imperial nation's largest arena. It was said that as the first Jinchuriki, the Six Paths built the arena out of a small mountain using the power of the 10 tails and reinforced it with seals. It was 3 times the size of the stadium Konoha uses for its Chunin exams and as tall as a 3-story building. The stadium was awe-inspiring to anyone who saw it for the first time. The Coliseum's interior was a sight to behold. The arena itself is a massive square platform surrounded by crystal blue water, held in place by 4 massive statues of the Six Paths Sage via stone chains. The arena was only accessible by bridge, which was then retracted. A series of triage centers were set up within the Coliseum's walls, with Hinata's medic corps on standby to treat the wounded fighters' injuries. The Imperial Kumite fielded 50 fighters, 20 of whom were from the east. They had met with Anko Mitarashi inside a meeting room beneath the stadium before heading out into the stands, who was explaining the rules of the Imperial Kumite, having competed in a couple of them herself. Anko ignored the Konohagakure shinobi as she explained the rules, knowing full well what was in store for them. The rules for the Kumite are simple, full contact, anything goes. Weapons and jutsu are allowed. Any bloodline-related abilities are allowed. The matches are one-on-one, and you can win by knockout, submission, knocking your opponent out of the arena, and my personal favorite, making your opponent submit. "That," exclaimed Aniwa Shinobi. "To say mat is the same as to say uncle," Anko explained. "Forcing your opponent to say mat is the most humiliating way for the loser to lose a match." Sasuke glared at Rasu, who ignored him as if he were a bug, from his vantage point. "Good luck, because you'll need it," Anko concluded. And one more thing. Her maniacal grin spread across her face. Try not to perish. The booth reserved for the Emperor and Empress Consort, the Imperial Council, and their guests took up the top 2 rows of the Colosseum at the northern end of the stadium. Stairs connected the upper and lower sections of the massive booth for easier access. The cages of the east were present, each dressed in their respective state robes and hats. General Mifune was also present, but had decided not to compete with several of his men. Tsunade Senju was also there, as was Jiraiya, who had his remaining arm in a sling, his broken leg in a cast, a neck brace around his neck, and his jaw wired shut, as well as a representative from the Fire Lord's court, and several of his guardian ninja. Kurenai Yuhi and Yamato stood guard over the 2 Sannin. Kabuto Yakashi, who was disguised as a member of the Reikichi's personal guard, was also present, unbeknownst to Tsunade and Jiraiya but known to Naruto and Hinata. Kabuto was there to keep an eye on Sasuke, not to antagonize the Western Empire in any way, shape, or form. Naruto and Hinata were standing on the platform together, taking in the sights and sounds of the crowd. The Konoha group, Sasuke Uchiha, Asuma Sarutobi, Sakura Haruno, and Yugao Yuzuki tried to project as much killing intent as they could from the stands, but the couple in the arena didn't seem to notice. When Naruto raised his hand, the audience fell silent. Naruto began to speak, amplifying his voice with his chakra. It has been 3 long years since the beginning of a new era for all of us. A new era of peace, order, and prosperity. 5 years ago, I was but a warlord with a dream to unite this land, to bring about a peace not seen since the time of my great ancestor, the Rakuto Sennin. Through our blood, sweat, and tears, we have made that dream a reality. Through our hard work, through our perseverance. The audience erupted in applause. Naruto forced them to remain silent once more. Hinata took the floor next. We are honored to have the cages of the East, as well as the representatives of their respective daimyos, with us, and we hope that your stay here in the Western Empire is pleasant. To the brave men and women competing in the Imperial Kumite, my husband wishes you the best of luck. You 4 are going to need it, Naruto thought darkly as he glared at the Konoha shinobi, his cage-style hat concealing his face. From now on. This Colosseum is your battleground, Hinata declared. The Imperial Kumite has begun. As Naruto and Hinata returned to their booth via Shunshin, the crowd erupted once more. The Imperial Council, the 5 cages, and daimyo representatives sat inside the booth. Koyuki Kazuhana was also present, as was her husband, the Cage of Spring, Koichi Fujimura. Following Cell 7's mission into what was Snow Country, Koichi had served as Koyuki's bodyguard before stepping down to become Cage of the village hidden in the snow. Of course, they both agreed that her surname would be given to their children. Naruto and Hinata entered the booth and took their places. Minato was handed over to his mother after being placed in Kurama's care. I must say, my boy, you know how to work the crowd here, Onoki began. Practice makes perfect, Naruto replied. Tsunade ignored the 2 men, preferring to take a sip from a sake bottle. Kintaro Kagami and Zabuza Mamachi were having a sword fight exhibition match down on the arena. From the Unification Wars, the Demon of Kimen and the Strongman of the Scorched Earth had a competitive, yet fierce rivalry. To the delight of the crowd, the Imperial Council and the 5 cages watched the 2 swordsmen duel. The Konoha group watched the battle from the sidelines, leaking killer intent. The former Miss Swordsman was the one who killed Hadake, according to the 4 who were present in Suna during the Konoha Imperial conflict. The 5 cages and the Imperial Council sat inside the booth, watching as the fight heated up. Zabuza has grown, May observed. He was so hot-headed and rash back in Mist, I think spending time in the West has done him some good. Don't be concerned, Naruto replied. He's still the sociopath you've come to know and respect. In fact, the only one who can match him is Anko, and I think Zabuza is a masochist. Gaara, the Godame Kazekage of Suna, sat on the other side. I think congratulations are due, he said. Matsuri has informed me that Hinata is pregnant once more. I should congratulate you as well, as your wife appears to be expecting, Naruto responded. The battle ended in a standoff on the arena, with Zabuza and Kintaro's respective blades resting against each other's throats. The audience applauded as both men took several steps back and bowed to one another before disappearing via Shunshin. How long does the Imperial Kumite last? They inquired. It will go on until a champion is crowned, Naruto explained. The previous year's champion was and the previous year's champion was Zabuza, and neither you nor Hinata compete. Katsuragi inquired. No, we want to keep things fair, Hinata responded. Neither my husband nor I compete in the tournament, nor do the visiting village leaders. The Imperial Kumite is designed to promote healthy competition and goodwill within the empire. Whoever wins the Imperial Kumite is named champion, but cannot compete in the following year's Kumite. They must wait until the year is up before competing again. Jiraiya and Tsunade sat back in their seats as Hinata and Naruto explained how the Kumite worked, convinced that the Leaf had won the tournament. They were confident in their superiority because they had the last Uchiha, a former guardian ninja, the vice commander of the ANBU Black Ops unit, and the feral in Yuzuka. You just have to wait, Gaki, Tsunade thought darkly. Konoha will triumph in the Imperial Kumite, and it will be so sweet to see you admit that Konoha is the strongest village in the east. Konoha had made it through the first round of the tournament, but it had not been easy. Asuma Sarutobi had defeated an Iwa fighter. A low-ranking Imperial Samurai had been defeated by Sasuke Uchiha. Sakura Haruno used chakra-enhanced super strength to knock out an Imperial ninja. Yugao Yuzuki won by performing the dance of the crescent moon on a mist shinobi. Kuretsuchi of Iwa, 2 of Mei's mist shinobi, and Temari of Suna had also advanced through the tournament as Tsunade, and the others looked on. Ino Yamanaka, Hellcat members, Miko Himura, and Tenten Hyuga were all on the Empire's side. Rasu of the Violent Lightning also survived the tournament, as did Heiei Akajima, whose only goal in fighting was to pound Asuma Sarutobi into the ground. Rock Lee was beaten by Neji, who was then beaten by Rasu. To Mei's chagrin, Sasuke had successfully eliminated Mist from the competition. So ended the first day of the Imperial Kumite. Sasuke Uchiha was practicing kata with his Chokyudo at one of South Ikeyama's training grounds. He was alone because the others from Konoha had returned to their hotel. Tsunade and Jiraiya had gone to a bar to drink and make plans for the following day. Sasuke had deduced that there was no plan. He was in the Dobe's neighborhood, and if he won the Imperial Kumite, he would give his former teammate a serious black eye. That'd be the first. He'd show the Empire that the Uchiha were superior. Then he'd repay the Dobe for killing Itachi. And Hinata, Sasuke pondered. She knows how to conduct herself in combat. She's even more powerful than Haruno. I'm going to break her in front of the Dobe. He is unfit to be the ruler of these people. I will take his throne ... and the Empire will bear the Uchiha's rebirth. Having trouble sleeping, Sasuke spun around, Chokyudo poised to impale the idiot who had intruded on his training. Then again, if I found out that my former teammate was the ruler of an empire, I would have trouble sleeping as well, Kabuto, still dressed as one of Katsuraga's bodyguards, said as he emerged from the shadows, unmasked. So you're aware of that. Sasuke sniped as he resumed his training. I didn't know until the Akatsuki invaded Suna, Kabuto explained, because I was there on Lord Orochimaru's orders when the Akatsuki arrived. But he's been aware of the empire for quite some time. I was also present when the Akatsuki invaded and fought as a Suna Jounin. If the dead last and an insecure heiress couldn't do that much damage to the Leaf, then the Leaf's training is severely lacking. Sasuke remained deafeningly silent. It just goes to show that sometimes the dead last can surprise you, Kabuto continued, noticing Sasuke's grip on the Chokyudo becoming even tighter. He was the last man standing on his team. He is now 1/3 of the legendary Sannin, despite the fact that he is missing an arm. What do you want, Kabuto? Said Sasuke. He inquired icily. Nothing. I just stopped by for a friendly chat ... and to check in on your progress, Kabuto continued. When you tried to come to our side the last time, the dead last stopped you, and what did that get him? A one-way flight from Konoha. Take a look at him now, the Western Empire's emperor. While you, despite being trained by the late copycat Hatake, and the Warhawk ... well, to put it mildly, you are stuck in Konoha despite wielding the Meijin Kyowu. Naruto is stronger than you, as much as you don't want to hear it, Uchiha. In response, Sasuke attempted to split Kabuto in two, but ended up splitting a log instead. Did I hit a nerve, Sasuke? You can do a lot more, Kabuto said through the trees. You can learn more from the legendary Sannin's best. You can learn how to control your seal better. Lord Orochimaru's offer to you remains open, Sasuke Uchiha. With that, he was gone, leaving Sasuke alone with his thoughts. In the 7 years following Uzumaki's banishment, he was pardoned for his attempted defection, but it came at a cost. Sasuke, and all of Konoha, had underestimated the Dobe's influence on the people he had met. Another thing Kabuto was correct about was that Konoha had grown weak in the years since Uzumaki's banishment. And now that 4 of its clans had defected to the west and Suna had taken Konoha's place as the strongest of the village, Sasuke's opinion of the Leaf had plummeted even further. An Uchiha values strength above all else, his father had told him. The strong lead, while the weak follow, he had said. Sasuke's patience with Konoha was wearing thin, and Orochimaru's offer was looking more appealing than ever. The second day of the Imperial Kumite, Asuma Sarutobi had knocked off another Iwa shinobi, leaving Kuretsuchi. Sasuke Uchiha had trouble with his latest opponent, but had powered on through with a Chidori to the chest. Thankfully, his opponent had survived the assassination jutsu. Sakura Haruno was her opponent in a rematch from their Chunin exams when Naruto and Hinata were both genin. Both women were medic nins, and both were trained under Sannin, while Sakura remained in Konoha, unable to travel, as the impromptu death sentence extended to her as well. Given that she was also a member of Cell 7, Ino had far exceeded Hinata's expectations as a medic nin. Ino didn't even need to use her mind transfer jutsu. She simply maneuvered Sakura around the arena, sidestepping her former friend, until Sakura fell face first into the water, and Ino won the match by ring out. Then came Asuma Sarutobi, who had the misfortune of facing the Inoshika Nucho's sensei, Heiate Akajima. Asuma Sachirobi of Kano Hagakure no Sato vs Shinzoku's Hayate Okajima. To the arena, fighters. Heiate Akajima and Asuma Sarutobi entered the arena, Akajima wearing his shinobi uniform and putting on his Tengu mask. Tsunade grinned from the booth as she watched Asuma enter the arena. "Looks like my luck is turning, brat," she said to Naruto. Asuma is fighting. Heiate Akajima is not only a member of my council and Minister of Shinobi Affairs, but he is also a cunning and ruthless strategist, his intellect rivaling the Nara's. He's also an expert at the silent kill. In Taijutsu, only the Chiba and the Hyuga could compete with him. There's a difference between being a daimyo's bodyguard and fighting in a war, Senju. The Sandame's son is in for a tough fight. "What's with the Tengu mask?" they inquired. I asked Akajima the same question. Naruto explained, and he just said he liked wearing it. I simply left it at that. Akajima cracked his neck muscles and stood there, sizing up the former sensei of the Inoshika Cho trio. Asuma pulled out his trench knives and channeled chakra into them. He noticed Akajima didn't have a ninjato on him, and soon discovered why. On his forearms and hands were clawed gauntlets, the fingers ending in sharpened claws. He could have taken the easy way out and asked the Ino. Asuma tightened his grip on his knives. Despite his inability to perform jutsu, Asuma was a battle-hardened warrior under the command of Godame. "Ready, and go, fighters." The former guardian ninja and the Tengu moved in, Asuma punching and slashing with his trench knives, kicking up sparks as he attempted to use the flying swallow to break through Akajima's defenses. Kicking up sparks as his trench knives made contact against Akajima's chakra-covered gauntlets. Kicking up sparks as his trench knives made contact against Akajima's chakra-covered gauntlets. Asuma took a step back to avoid the punch to the face, but Akajima did not relent, landing the first blow, an open-palmed strike to the face that left an angry red mark on Asuma. Akajima-sensei is feeling Asuma out, Shikamaru explained to Ino and Chaoji, who were eating a bag of chips from the booth. They knew Asuma was good, but their de facto sensei was even better. Kurenai was concerned after hearing Shikamaru's remark, and Asuma couldn't perform any jutsu that involved hand seals because he was still in rehab for that. After all, Shikamaru continued, when he took us under his wing, he did the same to us. Don't remind me. Ino shuddered. We learned more from Akajima-sensei than Asuma. Down in the arena, Asuma had succeeded in tagging Akajima with several powerful blows, but Akajima had been hit with a lot worse. So he ignored the pain and the fight began to turn in his favor. What made the fight even more exciting was that Akajima, a master of ninjutsu, was not using any jutsu for the match, instead relying solely on taijutsu to beat Asuma within an inch of. Heiate pummeled Asuma with a barrage of punches, elbows, and kicks after 2 kicks to the sternum forced him up against the stone chains. Asuma tried to defend against the onslaught, but it was futile. Akajima stopped after 20 seconds, and Asuma slumped to a seated position, blood seeping from his mouth, and a cut to the head. This match was over, so Heiate turned to the proctor and said, "Call the match." Heiate Akajima, the winner. The crowd cheered as Akajima returned to the booth via Shunshin, ignoring the angry looks of Kurenai and the others. Akajima took his seat and removed his gauntlets, which were stained with Asuma's blood. "Your man is still alive," Akajima said to Tsunade and Kurenai, not looking at her. "The infirmary is at the south end of the stadium, first underground level. You'd be delighted to check on him there." Kurenai nodded, and with a glare to both Akajima and Naruto, Kurenai vanished in a Shunshin. Naruto chuckled from his seat. Yamato leveled his own spooky glare, which had scared Naruto in his youth, but Naruto responded with his own 1,000-yard stare, causing Yamato to flinch and back down. Yugao Yuzuki faced Hellcat member Miko Himura, who had seen Yugao use the dance of the crescent moon before. Miko countered the move by dispelling the clones used for the jutsu and disarmed Yujiro, forcing the ANBU vice commander to concede defeat. With Yugao out, Sasuke Uchiha remained. The Uchiha prince managed to knock Kuretsuchi out of the ring. Temari won against Ino but lost to Rasu, removing both Suna and Iwa from the tournament. This left the Uchiha and 2 Imperial warriors ready to tear him limb from limb. Nico Himura had forfeited her place in the tournament after learning that Rasu wanted to fight Sasuke, citing chakra exhaustion. Naruto had ensured that she would be reimbursed for time spent in the tournament. Which brings us to this point. The final round. Rasu of the Violent Lightning versus Sasuke Uchiha of Konohagakure no Sato. To the arena, fighters. Rasu strode in, his red and gold armor gleaming in the afternoon sun as the Shogun of the Violent Lightning faced down his last opponent. Rasu remembered his emperor's orders for him when the time came to face the arrogant Uchiha. Crush him. If he made Sasuke Saimat, that would be a bonus. Your road ends here, Rasu. The Uchiha smirked as he watched his opponent. This is where I will show the Dobe and his whore that I am superior to him by defeating you. Then he'll be the next, and the West will realize I'm the elite of the elites. Then you have no problem in showing me that you are an elite Uchiha. Please be a suitable challenge for me, unlike your late brother, whom the emperor had killed. Rasu replied simply by cracking his knuckles, before switching hands and repeating the motion. Fighters, ready, and go, yelled the proctor as Sasuke unsheathed his Chokyudo. As Rasu took his stance, lightning danced around him, and he mused, let the thunder roll. Sasuke began the match by flinging several kunai at Rasu, who simply batted them out of the way. Sasuke hoped that this would distract Rasu long enough for him to move in and use his sword, but Rasu was faster and unsealed his own weapon, a metal staff. Rasu was a prodigy in Bijutsu, as Sasuke would soon discover. The crowd applauded as Chokyudo and bow clashed, and Rasu calmly parried Sasuke's thrusts and swings. Sasuke has improved, but Rasu is playing with him, Kabuto said from inside the booth. Naruto does not appear worried. Could this be a setup to humiliate the Uchiha? Rasu moved to the side of the arena to avoid Sasuke's sword thrust, and his fist bounced off the back of the Uchiha's skull, knocking him to the ground. It's beneficial to compete in such tournaments because it keeps you sharp, explained the Lightning Master. Sasuke rose to his feet, retrieved his Chokyudo, and charged the smug Rasu, who was balancing his staff on one shoulder. Sasuke then felt the air rush out of his lungs as Rasu slammed his fist into his torso, forcing him down to one knee. Do you know what your most heinous sin is, Uchiha? Your pride, Rasu inquired. You're just hiding behind your Sharingan and your name, living in the shadow of your older brother. Stop talking. You know nothing, yelled Sasuke back. Oh, but I do, Rasu replied as he and Sasuke locked weapons. I remember you and the chief being in the same cell when you were younger. That Hatake had given you every jutsu you could think of. The chief and lady were forthright about their past. The chief, like his wife, has flaws, but he got to where he is today through hard work. Unlike you, the chief does not proclaim his superiority simply because he is a Six Paths descendant. He did not rely on his ancestors to get where he is. He didn't rely on his Rinnegan as a crutch. As a result, he has earned my respect. You liken me to that Dobe. I am a Uchiha, shrieked Sasuke. I am also a Six Paths descendant. I do, Rasu replied. And, sorry to burst your bubble, but neither the Uchiha nor the Senju are direct descendants of the Six Paths sage, under whose power this stadium was built. Your clan ancestor and those of the Senju were simply trained by him and rode on his coattails to further their family line. You think you had it rough because your nutjob brother exterminated your clan. Consider growing up without parents. The chief did just fine. You're seriously messed up in the head. Sit down, Sasuke yelled, breaking the grip. Rasu thrust his staff forward, catching Sasuke in his shoulder, and Sasuke's screams echoed through the Colosseum as a shock of electricity coursed through his veins, giving the audience a good view of his skeleton. Oh, suck it up, Uchiha, Rasu sniped as Sasuke dropped his Chokyudo. I barely touched you. He turned to the proctor and said, call the match. This runt has given up fighting. As she spun around on Rasu, Sasuke's eyes shifted into the Meijin Kaiwu. No, this fight is far from over. Chidori. He screamed as he went through several hand seals. Rasu smirked as Sasuke used the cursed seal's power to boost his speed. How in the world can an assassination jutsu create such a racket? He wondered as Sasuke bared down on him. Rasu's hand balled into a fist as he produced the counter for such an inferior technique. Rajinken. Rasu's signature technique was the lightning fist, which could be delivered in one of two ways, a straight punch to the face or a rising uppercut. As Sasuke discovered, he was struck with the ladder, which knocked him 7 feet into the air, with Rasu quickly following after him, adding insult to injury by using the lion combo, which Sasuke had stolen from Rock Lee during the Chunin. The Rasengan had thrown Sasuke's chakra control and nervous system out of whack, giving Rasu more than enough time to put the final nail in the coffin. A kick to the torso, followed by Rasu rolling Sasuke over on his stomach, pinning him to the arena with one knee, and painfully wrenching Sasuke's arm behind his back. "I'd like to hear it. Say it," Rasu exclaimed. Sasuke knew what Rasu wanted him to say, but saying it would be the ultimate humiliation even for him. When Sasuke hesitated in his response, Rasu responded by applying even more pressure to his arm, threatening to break it if he didn't give in. "Speak up, Uchiha. Say it so everyone can hear," Rasu demanded. When faced with the prospect of leaving the Empire with a broken arm, Sasuke conceded defeat. "Mat, mat, mat." As the crowd applauded, Rasu released Sasuke's arm and moved away from him. "The winner and champion of the Imperial Kumite, Rasu," declared the announcer. Inside the booth, Naruto grinned, while Tsunade slammed her fist on the reinforced arm of her chair, swearing profusely, while Jiraiya and Yamato looked annoyed. The Ino Shikacho cheered for the newest champion, while Katsuragi, Gaara, Onoki, and Mei looked pleased with how the tournament had gone. As he scrambled over to his Chokudo in the arena, Sasuke's eyes morphed into the Meijin Kaiō, his intent clear. He intended to deprive the Empire of its champion. Sasuke charged with the Chidori-Katana, intending to impale Rasu from behind. Rasu simply responded with a lightning shunshin, and Sasuke had to skid to a halt as he found himself close to the arena's edge. Upon reappearing, Rasu took the opportunity to inflict one last humiliation on his dishonorable opponent. He pushed Sasuke out of the ring and into the water. The crowd laughed as Sasuke dragged himself out of the water and stomped out of the arena, humiliated beyond belief. In the booth, Tsunade was torn between knocking Sasuke's head off for his attempted cheap shot from behind, and wanting to die as a result of the humiliation that Sasuke, and by extension, Konoha, had suffered as a result of his actions. 3 weeks later, Konohagakure no Sato. Sasuke Uchiha was not pleased. His grand debut in the Empire's Imperial Kumite had been a big failure, as had the team that Tsunade had assembled. He had not only lost, but had been thoroughly humiliated by Rasu, and by extension, Naruto. Worse, Konoha and Fire Country were forced to pay a huge indemnity due to Sasuke's attempted murder of Rasu, or face invasion from the Western Empire. Word had spread quickly about how Sasuke not only lost, but also attempted to spear the champion of this year's Imperial Kumite in the back with his Chidori-Katana. Apart from Naruto, Sasuke despised the fact that he was treated as a joke, as an afterthought. When he returned to Konoha, he kept to himself unless summoned by Danzu. His opinion of Tsunade and her super pervert of a teammate had sunk even lower. The thought of leaving Konoha for greener pastures, namely Otagakure, was more frequent in his mind. He had closed himself off from the others, save for Danzu, as he answered to him. As he entered the Uchiha district, he was still thinking evil thoughts. The 2 black books were placed on his nightstand inside his bedroom, which was odd because Sasuke did not own any books with black binders. Further examination revealed that the books in question were Black Ops books that detailed every single Black Ops mission that had occurred in Konohagakure during the Hokage's and Danzu Shimura's reign. Curiosity got the best of Sasuke, and he sat on the edge of the bed and started reading. And Sasuke's rage grew as he discovered the truth behind the Uchiha incident, of how it was ordered by the Sandaime himself, with the backing of Danzu Shimura and the 2 deceased council elders, in order to thwart his father's coup attempts, of how the Konoha Civilian Council had planned on turning the Sharingan into a weapon in order to make Konoha the strongest of the villages. Worse, Tsunade herself had signed off on the order in the Hokage's Black Ops book. If Sasuke had been made before, he was enraged. His life was not his own. His bloodline had been stolen by those who did not deserve it, and he had been duped by the Hokage and the Civilian Council. The path to him was now clear. Sasuke Uchiha had left the village before dawn ... but not before sending a message to Konoha. First, he had spent most of the night sneaking into the homes of the Civilian Council and executing the council members, including Sakura's mother, the head of the Konoha Merchants Guild. Because Sakura was working at the hospital at the time, she was spared his wrath. Sasuke considered killing Danzu and Tsunade, but decided against it. He did, however, kill Asuma Sarutobi as he was on his way home from rehab. Sasuke Uchiha was halfway to Otagakure by the time the alarm went off. Furious, Tsunade and Danzu ordered a joint retrieval mission to recover the Uchiha. But Orochimaru had anticipated this and reacted by unleashing the revived Sound 4 and 200 Oto Jounin on the 20-man retrieval team. Only 3 members of Tsunade's retrieval team, Kiba and Yuzuka, as well as root operatives Toruna Burame and Fuyamanaka, survived to deliver the bad news. The Uchiha retrieval mission 2 was a complete failure, with Sasuke Uchiha successfully defecting to Orochimaru. Sasuke Uchiha was declared an S-class missing nin and traitor to both the Leaf and Fire Country, wanted for the murders of Asuma Sarutobi and civilian members of the Konohagakure Civilian Council by the Fire Daimyo. Rice Country, Otagakure. Welcome to my humble home, Sasuke Uchiha, Orochimaru said from his throne as Sasuke entered the room, having been led inside by Kabuto. I am pleased to see that you have taken up my offer, he said to Kabuto. With the exception of 3, everyone is dead, Kabuto responded. Good, you made the right decision in coming here to Otagakure, Sasuke, the Snake Sannin said. I've heard about your performance in the Imperial Kumite, as well as the incident with your former teammate in Suna. Although I am surprised to learn that the Emperor is now the dead last. I couldn't care less about the dobe, Sasuke exclaimed. I only want one thing, aside from the power you promised me. Oh, and what is it? Burn Konoha, Sasuke replied, and destroy everything. Tsunade, Danzu. Everything. Konoha betrayed my clan by attempting to turn me into their personal weapon. Naruto and the Empire will have to wait. I'm familiar with the Leaf's strengths and weaknesses. Konoha is vulnerable after losing 4 clans and the majority of their experienced Jounin. I cannot serve a helpless village. Yes, Orochimaru said, leaning back in his seat. I think we'll get along just fine, Sasuke. That's fine. Kimen, Imperial Complex. Several days later, a member of the Empire's intelligence division delivered the scroll to Naruto and Hinata's office inside the House of Sovereigns. The scroll was a week old, but it contained something Naruto had wanted to hear since returning to Konoha to plant the incriminating evidence of the 2 Black Ops books he had stolen months earlier inside Sasuke's home. Hinata read over Naruto's shoulder as he read the scroll. Fire Daimyo has placed Uchiha in the Bingo book as a S-class missing ninja, as well as for the murders of the Konohagakure Civilian Council and Asuma Sarutobi. I must say that I am very impressed, Hinata admitted. There's one thing about the Uchiha, her husband said, he's so predictable. Although killing off the Civilian Council and Asuma was unexpected, it's still a welcome bonus. So, what are we going to do now? Hinata inquired. We have to wait. The Leaf has sown the wind, and Konoha's days are numbered, Naruto replied. It will now reap the whirlwind, and when the leaf falls, I'll be there to put the final nail in their coffin. The Imperial Kumite in South Ikeyama had concluded 9 months before. The Imperial Nation had since signed a non-aggression pact with both Iwagakure and Earth Country, as well as establishing a Pikara outpost in the Earth capital. Anoki also agreed to send Iwa medic nins to Kimen to learn from Hinata in order to reduce Iwa casualties. Second, Naruto had reclaimed and annexed the ruins of Whirlpool Country. He didn't resurrect Uzashigakure no Sato because there was no need. He did, however, turn Whirlpool into a significant Pikara outpost. Sasuke Uchiha had defected from Konoha in the months following the conclusion of the Imperial Kumite, murdering Asuma Sarutobi and the Konoha Civilian Council on his way out. The event became known as the Uchiha Slaughter. Given that he had run years before and wielded the Meijin Kaibu Sharingan, he was classified as an S-class threat in the Bingo book. Kill on sight is the order. Naruto was aware that he had fled to Otagakure, as he was the one who had persuaded the Uchiha to do so in the first place. It was only a matter of time until Orochimaru and Sasuke invaded Konoha. Orochimaru had not only taught Sasuke how to control his cursed seal, but he had also recruited bandits and missing nin to the sound, swelling his ranks, the majority of whom had been subjected to the cursed seal. Orochimaru had, as expected, ordered his nin not to antagonize the Pikara merchants and their caravans, as he did not want the Empire on his side. Sasuke objected to the order, but honored it because Orochimaru had a valid point. As the Akatsuki discovered the hard way, Kabuto had witnessed the Imperial forces in action firsthand. We will soon make our move against the Empire and their interests, Orochimaru had promised Sasuke. But for the time being, our primary focus is the Leaf. Orochimaru had no idea Naruto was tricking him into attacking Konoha. Kabuto had his suspicions, but dismissed them because he assumed Naruto couldn't pull off such a grandiose plan. Sasuke had no idea Naruto had manipulated him into defecting from Konoha by making him look worthless in the eyes of the shinobi world, or that the blackout books from Danzu and the Hokage were planted by him. He had ignored his late sensei's advice to look beneath the hidden meanings. Tsunade and Jiraiya had no idea they had grossly underestimated their ex-godson. They thought he had the devil's luck in evading their hunter nins and establishing the empire, that he was a dead last like Jiraiya when the Sannin were under Sarutobai's tutelage. They had no idea Naruto would manipulate them, or that he would use Orochimaru and Sasuke to destroy Konoha, with Naruto himself delivering the final blow. Hinata gave birth to their second child 9 months later. Mokakushina Namikaze was the name given to her by the couple. Orochimaru had decided that the time had come for them to attack Konohagakure as the imperial nation celebrated the birth of their new princess. Captain Asahina had sent a message to the imperial capital informing Naruto and Hinata of the Konoha invasion. Despite his reluctance to leave his newborn daughter, Naruto had to ensure that Konoha, and by extension, Odo, did not pose a threat to his family or the empire. Hinata had recognized him and told him to do what he needed to do and that he had better come back alive. Naruto used the Demon's Gate with Kurama, and the two found themselves in Fire Country. Naruto summoned the 6 Paths and had them join Orochimaru's army, while he and Kurama set up shop in Konoha from their perch atop the ruined Hokage monument. After retrieving the ashes of Hashirama and Tobirama Senju from the Konoha cemetery, Naruto and Kurama stood on the monument, watching as Tsunade ordered the evacuation of all civilians in the village, followed by Konoha shinobi attempting to fortify their defenses. Several messenger birds had been sent to Suna and Mist, but Naruto knew Gaara and Mei would not interfere. This would be Konoha's final conflict. One of two things was going to happen: Konoha would survive but be permanently crippled, or Konoha would be destroyed. Naruto was going to make certain that the latter was the desired outcome. He had once told Hinata that when the time came, he would be watching Konoha's demise from the top of the Hokage monument with a few drinks, sushi plates, and popcorn. He did exactly that, much to Kurama's chagrin. The invasion had officially begun shortly after noon. The assault was led by Sasuke and Orochimaru, who were supported by over 2,000 Odo shinobi, while Sasuke pursued Danzu deep into the underground complex where Danzu was located. He had witnessed the events that led to Danzu's final fight with Sasuke, while Orochimaru and his forces carved a path to the ruins of the Hokage Tower, where Tsunade, Jiraiya, and the remaining members of the Konoha 11 and their families awaited to make their final stand. Orochimaru, being the sadistic bastard that he was, had not only subjected half of his forces to the Cursed Seal, but had also used the Impure World Resurrection Jutsu, resurrecting not only Hashirama and Tobirama Senju, but also Hiruzen Sarutobi, Kakashi Hatake, Itachi Uchiha, Asuma Sarutobi, and the resurrected shinobi, helpless under Orochimaru's command, slaughtered their former village. Asuma Sarutobi had assassinated his wife. The Konohamaru Corps had slaughtered a quarter of the Chunin who had joined them at the Shinobi Academy, forcing the surviving Chunin to lead the Konohamaru Corps into a trap that involved rigging the former Hyuga compound with explosive tags, destroying the compound, and crushing the revived trio beneath the debris. Meanwhile, Tsunade, Jiraiya, and the remaining clan heads and their children were fighting Orochimaru, the 2 Senju brothers, and Hiruzen Sarutobi, while Kakashi slaughtered the majority of the ANBU Black Ops with Amaterasu, with Yamato and Yugao among the casualties, but not before Yamato crushed the Sound 4 with his Mokyudan. Orochimaru's wrath did not spare the Konoha hospital. In a suicide attack, a squad of Odo Nin, their bodies covered in exploding tags and under the influence of the Cursed Seals, leveled the building. Shizune Kato and Mato Gai, who had been in the hospital since Suna, were among the casualties. Despite this, Tsunade and Konoha continued to fight until the battle came to a halt. The Sandaime and his son murdered Tsume and Kiba and Yuzuka. Hana and Yuzuka had evacuated with the civilians on her mother's orders. Shino and Shibuya Burame had been killed by the resurrected Shodaime and Nidaime Hokages. Sasuke had joined the fight and killed the last of the ANBU who had come to protect Tsunade. Naruto, having had enough, decided to step in. Clap, clap. The fighting between Konoha and Odo shinobi came to a halt when they heard clapping. The 3 Sannin, as well as the revived Hiruzen and Asuma Sarutobi, Kakashi Hatake, and the Senju brothers, paused their 2-on-1 brawl. The warring parties looked around, trying to figure out who was clapping, until the culprit revealed himself. He emerged from the haze, accompanied by a red-headed woman. He was the one clapping and applauding the mayhem, dressed in his shinobi uniform, the same one Tsunade and Jiraiya had seen him wear in Suna. Kurama, dressed in her battle uniform, accompanied him. Isn't life's end beautiful? It's almost tragic. When life ends, it gives off a final lingering aroma. Light is but a farewell gift from the darkness to those on their way to die, the Emperor said. Hiruzen's eyes blinked. Minato, and not your father, old man, Naruto retorted. Oh, yes, I know the yellow flash was my father. You lied to me since I was a child. Sarutobi, you lied to me since I was a child. Naruto, I did what I did to protect you, Sarutobi defended himself. Please understand that your father had many enemies from the previous Shinobi War. I understand you and Danzu attempted to turn me into a loyal weapon, Naruto responded. I know you betrayed my parents, and I know that manipulating a boy was more important than honoring my parents' final wishes. Hiruzen sighed and removed the mask. I guess I can drop the act now. You should, Naruto responded. He moved his gaze to Tsunade and Jiraiya. Do you remember what I told you both that day when you decided to exile me? Tsunade and Jiraiya, of course, remembered. They didn't take his seriousness into account. After all, they had dismissed him as the dead last, the Kyuubi brat who had taken their loved ones. They laughed at his threat. This isn't over, not by a long shot. You and all of Konohagakure chose a traitor over me. I will not forget this, and I will not forgive the both of you for this betrayal. Please pray that I don't return to this god-forsaken village, because if I do, I will destroy you all. Never let it be known that I keep my word. The emperor said, I told you both in Suna that this was just the beginning. And as my father brought Konoha's rise, so I will bring Konoha's fall. You, causing the Leaf's demise. Huh, snorted Sakura. Even when we were kids, you were so full of yourself, Naruto. People change after you haven't seen or heard from them in years. Haruno, Naruto remarked. Even me, he said, looking at the Sannin, his former cellmates, and the Sandame. It's been years since we've been here, together in the Leaf, he said, turning to Kurama, and here, I thought they'd be happy to see us, Kurama. Kurama smiled fangly at Naruto. But, Naruto continued, as Tsunade and the others noticed the silhouettes of a man and a woman in the smoke behind the emperor, and the Biju queen. I did not come by myself, he explained to Jiraiya. You told me in Suna that you honored my parents' sacrifice by allowing me to suffer rather than respecting their final wishes. Perhaps you could tell them what you told me. The two people emerged from the smoke at that point. Even after being dead for over 20 years, anyone from Konoha recognized the couple almost instantly. The man wore his blonde hair in the same style as his son. He was dressed in full Konoha Jounin uniform, complete with flak vest. The flame pattern on the tail end of the white trenchcoat fluttered in the breeze. He was twirling a Harishin trichonai on one finger through the ring. His companion wore her long red hair up in a ponytail. Rather than the Konoha Jounin uniform, she was dressed in the standard Whirlpool Kunoichi uniform, which was similar to what Hinata would wear. Her left hand held a ninjato. Yondaime Hokage Minato Namikaze, the Yellow Flash, and his wife, the Princess of Whirlpool, the Red Death herself, Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. And when they saw the people who had betrayed and later attempted to kill their son, they did not look happy. People in whom they once placed their trust. Naruto grinned. Orochimaru isn't the only one who has heard of the Impure World Resurrection. In reality, Naruto was unaware of the forbidden jutsu. He had simply placed two reinforced clones under the henge, disguised as Minato and Kushina, to use as psychological warfare. The Shinigami, however, allowed Minato and Kushina's souls to possess the two shadow clones for the duration of the clones' existence. Even the Death God agreed that Konoha had to answer for their betrayal and had allowed them to return to the land of the living, albeit for a brief period of time. Naruto had done this before leaving Kimen for Konoha. Of course, it allowed Minato and Kushina to spend time with their grandchildren before departing, as well as thank their friends for honoring their final request regarding Naruto. While Naruto was on the Hokage monument, Minato and Kushina decided to vent their frustrations by fighting Konoha's forces until the big reveal. Give me one good reason why I should not do to this village what I did to Iwa, Minato said, one hand gripping the trichonai. For one reason, we did what we needed to do, Jiraiya explained. When it became clear that Naruto could not be controlled, we saw him as a threat and had to deal with him as such, said Hiruzen-sensei. In contrast, Kushina was furious. So you not only tried to exterminate my brother and clan, but you also damned my son to hell, she demanded. She wasn't called the Red Hot Habanero for nothing. She was furious at Jiraiya for what he had done. The Nine Tails were the Senju clans and, by extension, the Leaf's property. Tsunade defended. Just like all the other Biju, Kushina's face was filled with pity and betrayal as she looked at her aunt. You're mistaken, as I'm sure my son has already explained. The Biju are not the property of the Senju clan, but rather of the Uzumaki clan, whose ancestor was the Rikudo Sennin himself. That much is true, said Hashirama. All I did was use the Mokyuten to subdue them, he said, turning to face the reunited family. What is your name? My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Lord Shadaime, Naruto said. former Genin Shinobi of Konohagakure no Sato, former Jinchuriki of Kurama, the nine-tailed fox, descendant of the Rikudo Sennin, and emperor of the unified Western Empire. Tsunade Senju, as much as I despise admitting it, is my great-aunt, because Mito Uzumaki was her grandmother. My father, Yondame Hokage of Konoha, Minato Namikaze, and my mother, Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, princess of Whirlpool and second Jinchuriki to Kurama. What the kit says is true, Kurama stated. Naruto's claim was supported by the appearance of 9 foxtails from her backside. The Biju Queen smirked, relishing the disbelief on the faces of the Sannin and the resurrected cages. Even Orochimaru was taken aback. I am Kurama, better known by my title, Kyuubi no Yoko, the nine-tailed fox, she explained to Hashirama. You don't look good, Hashirama, Mito would frown on you. Jiraiya was taken aback. The hot redhead who had been following Naruto around had been the Kyuubi the entire time. Naruto turned to face the assembled cages. Isn't this something? Konoha has cages all together. You broke the seal. Hiruzen yelled angrily. I did, Naruto said. I did this after your successor expelled me from the leaf. You were banished from the leaf. Hashirama inquired, curious about Naruto's past. What was your offense? Naruto replied, being a hero. Konoha favored a potential traitor over me, and that both Tsunade and Jiraiya blamed my parents' deaths on me, as did Hiruzen for the death of his wife. Long story short, a former student of my father's thought to be Kia returned and unleashed Kurama onto the village as my mother was giving birth to me. My mother died from complications surrounding her birth, and my father had to use the Shiki Fujin to seal Kurama. Tobirama gave a nod. A noble sacrifice, he commented. Naruto laughed. Konoha didn't seem to think so, and neither did Sarutobi or those two idiots. My father's last wish was for the leaf to see me as a hero, but I was denied my inheritance by Sarutobi, and the village treated me like a virtual pariah. But that is just the tip of the iceberg, Lord Nidame. Sarutobi and Shimura wanted to make me into Konoha's weapon, but died as a result of sealing, or Sasuke Uchiha was assigned to Cell 7, the same as me, and had defected from Konoha as a result of the promise of power from Orochimaru. Tsunade had ordered a retrieval team to go and recapture Sasuke before he could make it to Orochimaru. It's true, as much as I dislike admitting it, Orochimaru admitted. While his teammates fought my Sound 4, Naruto fought Sasuke at the Valley of the End. Naruto defeated Sasuke and brought him back home, but instead of being recognized as a hero, he was blamed for Sasuke attempting to flee. He was banished, and Tsunade even went so far as to send out ANBU and Hunter Nins to kill him. His smirk deepened. Your own granddaughter and great-niece exiled a hero while pardoning a traitor. The two male Senju shifted their gaze to Sarutobi and the other two Sannin. Is this true? You exiled Mito's descendant? He inquired. They did, Kushina confirmed, at the cost of raising Whirlpool Country and Uzushiagakure on Sarutobi's orders. You sold out the Uzumaki clan, my family, all for what? Konoha regaining control of Kurama. Good thing I didn't fully trust you, which is why I had Takuma and nearly all of Uzushiagakure relocate back to the west, after eliminating the invading shinobi and dressing them up in Uzu. This is very interesting. The snake thought, I wonder how this will play out. Orochimaru and Sasuke stood on the sidelines, watching the drama unfold. Meanwhile, Sasuke was thinking something like, I hope the dobe gets killed. While you thought the Uzumaki were nearly extinct, they were in the west, out of sight and mind. Of course, Mom couldn't send a message to Uncle Takuma because she knew you were watching her like a hawk, Naruto concluded. Naruto had all but confirmed that Kushina, the great spymaster of Konoha, had deceived him, and even Hiruzen, who had signed off on the order, was furious that the Yondame's wife had played both him and Jiraiya. The power of the Kyuubi belonged to the leaf, exclaimed the one-armed sage. Neither I nor Hiruzen-sensei would allow the Uzumaki to take what was rightfully ours. He pointed to Kushina and said, you were only safe because you were Minato's wife. Minato had had enough. The yellow flash of Konoha slugged his former sensei right in the jaw, knocking him ass over tea kettle, the toad sage landing flat on his back. Minato was more than angry. He was enraged at Konoha's blatant disregard for his final wishes regarding his son. I trusted you, Jiraiya, you were like a father figure to me, and you go ahead and do it. You and Tsunade not only betrayed your godson, my son, but you also condemned him to a life of misery and pain. You really are a piece of work, Jiraiya, Naruto snorted. So much for honoring their sacrifice. He turned to Hashirama and Tobirama, saying, I had every intention of letting Konoha self-destruct through their own choices. Retaliation for betraying me and my family. But when I refused terms for an alliance, that damned Warhawk and his 2 council buddies decided to send Sai and a hit squad of his Rude NBU to try and assassinate not only me, but also my wife, the 4 clans who had defected from here, and the Imperial Council. Tsunade's, Jiraiya's, and Sarutobai's eyes widened. Was this all Danzu's fault? Koharu and Hanmura, on the other hand, the Emperor continued, let's just say they were long overdue for retirement. I decided to be considerate and leave Danzu for Sasuke. Tsunade and the others recognized the hidden meaning right away. Naruto had killed them. Tsunade mentally cursed herself for dismissing their deaths as accidental, and in the case of Koharu, natural causes. Aside from his attempted regicide crimes, Danzu has his own secrets. I thought you were under the influence of the Sharingan he had implanted beneath those bandages, but it turns out you weren't. Naruto continued, his own eyes morphing into the Rinnegan. Shimura not only possesses the Sharingan, but also a special arm concealed beneath his robes that houses not only multiple Sharingans, but also DNA extracted from the body of the first Hokage. Tobirama's and Hashirama's eyes narrowed. Power ... She's a seductive mistress, Naruto went on, an addictive thrill. The weak-minded are left wanting more after just one taste. It has the potential to drive some people insane. Tsunade, Orochimaru, Danzu, Sarutobai, even Tsunade. With great power comes greater responsibility. You and your brother were aware of this. My father was aware of this. You once preached about the will of fire, Lord Shadame. Your former student and his own students, one of whom is your own granddaughter, have extinguished the will of fire. Yes, Hashirama said, visibly disturbed by the sequence of events. It appears so. No, grandfather, don't pay attention to him. Tsunade tried to defend herself, saying, the brat is lying. I told you before, old hag, Naruto shot back, his smirk deepening. Want to know how badly you underestimated me? You got a taste of it in Suna. But this could be considered my masterpiece, he said to Jiraiya. For a spy master, he clearly did not see this coming. But then again, neither of you did. Imagine the Dobe, the demon of Konoha, manipulating not only Konoha's greatest spy master, but also Konoha's god-aim Hokage, and the snake Sannin. Watch what you say, boy, Orochimaru warned. You may be strong, but you are not stronger than me. That's no way to thank the person who gave you the key to immortality, Naruto remarked, wagging his finger at the snake. Did you really think Sasuke came to your side willingly? Certainly not. Tsunade's and Jiraiya's eyes widened at this revelation. I knew it, Kabuto admitted. I had my suspicions, but no proof. You tricked Sasuke into leaving Konoha. It's amazing what blackout orders detailing the Uchiha massacre, and Sasuke's role in creating a Uchiha clan subservient to only the Hokage can do, Naruto admitted. On the other hand, it was easy to make that idiot think he wasn't as much of an elite as he thought himself to be. The Kumite back in the Empire ... You designed it solely to humiliate me. Sasuke growled as his gaze shifted into the Sharingan. Naruto had played him for a fool yet again. Actually, I didn't, Naruto said, shaking his head. I simply rigged the tournament so that you would end up facing Rasu. The fact that you made it this far was a miracle in and of itself. You should be proud of yourself, Sasuke. Because of me, you will go down in history as the man who brought Konoha down. Uchiha is a spiteful, bitter, spoiled brat. Though I will gladly take credit for destroying the leaf. You used us, Asuma said, after remaining silent for the duration of the argument. We're all in this together, just so you could annihilate Konoha. Don't you just love it when everything falls into place? I certainly do. This was something Hinata and I made up as a joke while fighting in the Unification Wars. But after we united the lands, we gave it more thought. But before we could deal with the leaf, we had to deal with Obaido and the Akatsuki, who would almost certainly come after me for having the Biju in my possession. Obaido's invasion of Suna provided me with the justification I needed to go to war, as Suna is an ally. I could finally concentrate on Konoha after Obaido and the Akatsuki were defeated. Hiruzen had had enough. With madness in his eyes, he charged at Naruto, as did Asuma, brandishing his bloodied trench knives. However, Kurama intervened. 2 of her foxtails had speared the resurrected father and son and lifted them into the air. As the Konoha side watched in horror, Kurama incinerated both men, reducing them to char. Asiai, Jiraiya exclaimed in horror. Goodbye, Hiruzen Sarutobai, Naruto retorted, and please convey my regards to Koharu and Hanmura. Jiraiya turned red at that moment. You devil, the enraged super pervert screamed, forming a Rasengan in his hand, and charging at the Emperor, who slid a pair of Hurricane kunai, one black, the other the classic Trikunai, in his hands, sidestepping the Rasengan, impaling Jiraiya with the Trikunai in his left hand. Jiraiya's eyes widened as the Rasengan dispersed, and he looked at the man who, in his mind, resembled the man whose son he had abandoned along with most of Konoha. "That's for my parents, who you betrayed," Naruto snarled, pushing the trikunai even deeper into Jiraiya's neck. "That's for the Uzumaki clan, who you tried to exterminate." He raised the second kunai and drove it into Jiraiya's neck. "Fuck you and go." Naruto yanked the trikunai out of Jiraiya's gut and kicked him back, and Jiraiya died, staring at the darkening night sky. The last thing he saw were the faces of Minato and Kushina, who looked at him with nothing but contempt. "And then there were two," Naruto pondered, turning to Orochimaru. "Even though I despise Konoha, you are still a threat. The main reason you're here is to save me from having to invade Otagakior. What better way to get rid of all of my family's enemies than to gather them all in one place? Is that correct?" Orochimaru retorted, turning to Kabuto, Kakashi, and the two Hokages. "Kill him, and we'll send his head to his wife," he said. Kabuto nodded, while Hashirama and Tobirama faced the Emperor, the two Senju preparing to use their Makauten to capture the Emperor, and the Biju Queen, and Kakashi preparing to face his former sensei. But Naruto was not known as the unpredictable maverick shinobi for nothing, and he flung the bloody kunai at Kakashi, which was followed by "Hiraishin no Jutsu," exclaimed Hiraishin. One crimson flash later, Naruto was holding the kunais with the special talismans attached to them that Orochimaru used to control Hashirama and Tobirama in one hand and his unsheathed katana in the other, having yanked them from the two cages right before the young emperor sledgehammered them back from punches to the face. For a split second, Kabuto stood there, then his glasses fell to the ground, nearly cut in half, followed by Kabuto himself, Naruto having vertically bisected Orochimaru's right-hand man. "Try to recover from that," Naruto advised. Minato couldn't be prouder of his son, calling him impressive. "Our village has wronged this boy, brother," the Nidaime said as he faded into dust. "He has the right to destroy Konoha," Hashirama said, nodding. Before fading away completely, he addressed Tsunade, saying, "You are a disappointment to the clan, Tsunade." Tsunade and Orochimaru had closed in on the Namikaze family, with the surviving Konoha shinobi, Tsunade having lost any and all sense of sanity following her grandfather's denunciation of her, and Orochimaru, Kusanagi in hand. Kakashi had retrieved a pair of kunai from his pouch, while Sasuke summoned lightning to his Chokyudo, wanting to. Naruto, Minato, and Kurama retaliated by raining down black Hiraishin kunai with the Hiraishin seals etched onto the blades on the surviving Sound and Leaf shinobi, as well as the classic trikunai. As expected, Sasuke, Tsunade, and Orochimaru escaped the rain of steel, but some of their subordinates did not. Hiraishin no Jutsu, he says. Minato Namikaze had become famous for using the Flying Thunder God to annihilate a sizable portion of Iwagakure shinobi. Now, Konoha and Sound had experienced the combined wrath of the Yondaime and the Emperor. When the flash faded, carnage was left behind. Kakashi Hatake had been slain, his soul sealed. Kushina and Kurama had killed a number of shinobi from both sides. Naruto had killed Sakura Haruno, and Tsunade and Orochimaru were mortally wounded, Naruto placing a special seal designed to nullify his powers before severing his spine. Tsunade had been stabbed repeatedly by Kus. Naruto, on the other hand, did not want to deal with the Uchiha because he had already beaten him 3 times. He wasn't going to fight him, but he wasn't going to kill him either. Naruto simply slashed at the tendons in his arms and legs, rendering his former teammate crippled. But only for a short time. After witnessing the Hiraishin's power and surviving Minato and Kushina's assault, the rest of the attacking shinobi retreated deeper into the village. "Behold," Naruto said, spreading his arms and looking around the ruined village, "the end result of your betrayal." Tsunade pleaded, "In a Ruto. Please. Don't destroy Konoha. I'm sorry for betraying you. Please. Show mercy." "Mercy? I have no mercy for traitors. Now, it's time to end this," Naruto said calmly as he retrieved Sasuke's Chokyudo and Orochimaru's Kusanagi as war trophies. Turning to the dying Tsunade and Orochimaru, he gave them his final words, ignoring Sasuke's screams. "You'll live long enough to witness Konoha's demise. I believe what I have planned for Konoha's fate is appropriate. Farewell." After that, the Biju Queen and the Namikaze family vanished via Shunshin, away from Konohagakure. Funny how things come full circle. Kurama mused, now in fox form, just as she had been all those years ago. Only this time, the mountain-sized Kitsune was now a willing participant in Konoha's destruction. "I know." Naruto and his parents were seated on Kurama's head. "However, there is no time for regrets. The leaf has already made their bed. It's now time for them to lie in it. He had once believed in his village. He had believed in the will of fire. When Naruto told him of how Konoha had become corrupted, he did not believe him at first. But then he saw it with his own eyes. He had seen and heard of Jiraiya's betrayal. Minato, Kushina said, placing one hand over her husband's. Sorry for the inconvenience, but this had to be done. It's difficult for me as well. I know, Minato sighed, turning to face his son. You already know what to do. Kurama, his son said, nodding. Demolish the village. Gladly, said the fox. The Baijudama, the Biju bomb, is the Biju's signature attack, and it is also considered the strongest of the Biju's techniques. Now that Minato Namikaze's soul had been released by the Shinigami, Kurama's yin chakra had been restored, and Kurama was back at full power. And the Biju Queen's power was a terrifying sight to behold if you were on the wrong side. Kurama opened her maw and began to summon both positive and negative chakra, compressing it inside her mouth. Unleashing a perfect Baijudama was tricky for the Biju, as the chakra needed to be balanced at an 8:2 ratio lest the Baijudama backfire, as Juki discovered the hard way shortly after the 6 paths had separated them, resulting in a dislocated jaw for the 8 tails. The 10 tails Baijudama could level an entire village, and Kurama's Baijudama was no different. Fire, Naruto said calmly. Kurama unleashed the Baijudama. Tsunade knew Orochimaru was dead. Surviving Konoha and Oto Shinobi ran around, trying to find a way out of the doomed village, but the exits were blocked. Naruto having trapped the shinobi inside via exploding tags, blocking their escape route. Sasuke Uchiha was alive, but only for a short time. Tsunade stood over the bodies of Orochimaru and Jiraiya, the last of the legendary Sannin still alive. But not for long, as her grandfather's final words echoed in her mind. You are a disgrace to the clan, Tsunade. How in the hell did Naruto outwit all of us? This was not supposed to happen. Konoha is supposed to be the strongest of the villages. Where did we go wrong? Tsunade wondered. This can't be happening. I don't want to die. Sasuke was thinking, revealing that beneath his superior Uchiha persona, he was terrified of death. Those were their final thoughts as they were overcome by a blinding flash of light, and knew no more. Thus ended the legendary Sannin of Konoha, the Senju, and Sasuke Uchiha's life. The Biju bomb, in the form of a black mass of chakra, detonated over Konohagakure, instantly turning night into day and the night sky lighting up with the radiance of 1,000 suns. Any surviving shinobi caught in the flash were instantly reduced to carbon as a result of the flash, while others who were hiding inside Konoha's buildings were crushed as the blast wave expanded, shredding and impaling any and all. The Hokage mountain was also pulverized into oblivion, leaving only the training fields unaffected by Kurama's blast, though it did rattle the critters in the forest of death. As the light from the blast faded, the village of Konohagakure no Sato was engulfed in a sea of flames, resembling hell to anyone who had endured the ordeal. I curse its remnants, from its remaining shinobi to its surviving civilians, and their descendants, to whoever once lived here in Konohagakure no Sato. Naruto's chakra-masked voice carried on the wind. I sentence the Konoha remnant to a life of shame and guilt in the elemental countries for the crimes they committed in the name of the village. You will wander, looking for a new place to begin again, but you will not be able to rest. You will not be granted a reprieve. You will never have peace until the last of the remnant dies out. Naruto and his parents hopped off Kurama's head, and the Biju Queen assumed her human form. Naruto turned to his parents. So, I guess this is goodbye. Yes, Kushina said sadly. The Shinigami said this was only good for 24 hours, she said as she embraced her son. I am so proud of you, Naruto. Thank you, Mom, Naruto said, smiling. Sachai ... You have exceeded my expectations, Minato said as he stepped forward and patted his son on the shoulder. To make you Emperor of the West. You've made me proud. Thank you, Dad. Watch over him and his family, Kurama, Kushina said to Kurama. Consider it a request from an old acquaintance. I will, Kushina, Kurama said, nodding. The clones dispersed as their souls ascended to a higher plane of existence, and Naruto and Kurama watched them until they were no longer visible. Naruto felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to face Kurama. Your wife and children are expecting you, she said, so let's go home. Naruto nodded, exhausted. All he wanted to do was go back to Kimen and sleep. Kurama activated the Demon's Gate Jutsu, and the pair stepped through. Konoha burned behind them, leaving nothing but a ruined wasteland in the morning. The Imperial Complex is located within the Imperial Palace. Is it all over? Hinata's voice had jolted Naruto from his reverie as he peered into Minato and Mocha's bedroom. It's over, Naruto said to his wife, who was dressed in a shirt and shorts. The Scorched Leaf operation was a success. Konoha has been annihilated. The Sannin are no longer alive. Sasuke Uchiha is no longer alive. Hinata nodded. Despite everything, Konoha was their hometown. It had hurt them to see Konoha become corrupted. But in the end, they had chosen their own paths. Konoha had become a threat and had to be neutralized. Through this action, the Empire and the East would be safe. Suna would retain its status as the strongest shinobi village, while Kazahana's shinobi village will take Konoha's. Naruto had ensured that there would be no power vacuum, and Sasuke Uchiha would be remembered as the shinobi who brought down the leaf. Only he and his closest allies knew the truth. Naruto and Hinata can now look forward to the future of the Western Empire, as the Emperor's wrath has been quenched. Epilogue, Version A. From the history of the unified Western Empire. With the success of Operation Scorched Leaf, Konohagakure was finished as a major player in the shinobi world. The more superstitious people believed that the ruins of Konoha were cursed, and even bandits avoided the ruins like a plague. The Konoha civilians, led by Hana and Yuzuka, saw that they had nothing to return home to following the destruction of the leaf. Following Konoha's destruction, the survivors attempted to rebuild, but found it difficult. Led by Hana and Yuzuka and over 200 jounin, the Konoha remnant attempted to settle down, but each time, rival shinobi had attacked their group, thus driving down their numbers even further. In desperation, Hana and Yuzuka had appealed to the Fire Daimyo for aid, but was turned away. The Fire Daimyo, on threat of invasion on the orders of the other elemental nations given that he had supported Konoha's attempts to destabilize the other villages and their daimyos, had turned the remnants away, in order to keep his position as daimyo of Fire Country. That and the daimyo had agreed not to re-establish Konoha or another shinobi village on his lands in order to keep the other nations from invading. Following Naruto releasing information regarding his past attempts to cripple the rival villages and their daimyos through Danzu's Rude NBU. The last anyone has seen of Hana and Yuzuka and the Konoha remnants were that they were on a boat heading south to Temujin's continent. They were never heard from again. In the west, the four clans who had defected from Konoha had made a name for themselves in the unified Western Empire. Hinata's father, Hayashi Hyuga, had become known to being the diametric opposite of Takuma Uzumaki's headed personality. His daughter, Hanabi Hyuga, would establish herself as one of the finest diplomats that the Western Empire had to offer, serving in Spring Country as its representative. She was also a fine kunoichi, her skills in the Juuken becoming legendary. After returning from the mandatory 4 years abroad as the West's ambassador, she returned to Kimen, married, and settled down as clan head. What was formerly known as Selgai, now known as Cell 9, also achieved success in the West. Tenten Hyuga had worked her way up the ranks, becoming a skilled weaponsmaster in her own right. Rock Lee, having shed his mini-guy image, became famous for his taijutsu, earning him the nickname Kimen's Green Dragon. Aside from serving in the Imperial Defense Forces, Rock Lee also trained rising shinobi and samurai at the academy, which is where he also met his wife. Under the tutelage of Hayashi Hyuga, Neji Hyuga's martial arts abilities had increased tenfold. But Neji did not become arrogant thanks to his wife's influence. Both his and Hanabi's children would become famous for their teamwork. The first generation Ino Shikacho, consisting of Inoichi Yamanaka, Shikaku Nara and Chusa Akamichi, became famous for their teamwork in the West. Inoichi Yamanaka had become one of the most feared men in the Imperial Interrogation and Torture Division, with the prisoners preferring Ibiki over the Yamanaka mind reader. But one could not deny the results, as Inoichi got the job done. Shikaku Nara's reputation for his ability to remain impartial and fair in his post within the Ministry of Shinobi Affairs had even brought Iwa and Mist to the West settle a dispute. Aside from being the muscle of the trio, Chusa Akamichi also became famous for the Akamichi restaurant in Kimen, its barbecue becoming famous far and wide. The second generation Ino Shikacho, under the tutelage of Heiei Akajima, also became famous, even more so than their days in Konohagakure no Sato. Shikamaru Nara had married Temari, who had become Suna's permanent representative in Kimen, and had a daughter together. Ino Yamanaka had become a renowned medic ninja under the combined tutelage of Karin Uzumaki and Hinata Hyuga. She married Haku Yuki and the pair had 2 children, the eldest with her clan's signature jutsu, and the youngest with Haku's ice abilities. Chaoji also married, his wife being a civilian chef at the Akamichi restaurant. The restaurant itself was personally endorsed by the Emperor and Empress consort, as was the Yamanaka flower shop, mainly by the Empress herself. Ibiki Morino became a legend in the Imperial Interrogation and Torture. Aside from Inoichi Yamanaka and Zabuza Mamichi, He was the last person any criminal wanted to see. Zabuza had hooked up with Anko Mitarashi, who knew that Zabuza was a sadomasochist. Last was Naruto and Hinata Namikaze. The pair would rule as emperor for 25 years before they decided to step down from their place as emperor and empress of the United West. Minato Namikaze and his wife, Makoto Namikaze, formerly Asuna Jounin, to take the throne as the second emperor and empress consort of the unified West. Like his father, Minato would show that he had been trained well. He would rule the unified West under a fair and just hand, being a lover of truth and justice. Despite not being in line for the throne, Mocha Namikaze became the daimyo of Spring Country. A talented healer and fighter, Mocha was named the fourth fox sage by her mother in Kurama, seeing as how she had a talent for acting and singing. Koyuki Kazahana, known by her stage name of Yuki Fujikaze, had taken Mocha under her tutelage. By the time her elder brother had ascended the throne, Mocha Namikaze Kazahana, having married Yuki's son Rajan Kazahana, was not only an accomplished warrior, entertainer, and healer, but she would go on to rule Spring Country as its daimyo. Rajan would command Spring Village as its kage. The siblings would remain close for many years. Naruto and Hinata Namikaze would become known as father and mother of the empire, a title bestowed upon them in Naruto's 16th year as emperor of the unified West. With the ascension of Minato Namikaze, the exploits of his father and mother became legend. Naruto and Hinata Namikaze would go on to leave a series of instructions to their successors on how to rule. These instructions were mandatory reading for all heirs to the throne. What was said is now lost to history, but for all purposes, the advice was followed. The Namikaze dynasty would rule until the end of the Shinobi Age. No one knows the whereabouts of their descendants, but one thing is for certain. Their exploits will not be forgotten, as they are recorded in the annals of history. Their descendants have not died out, as they are still alive to this very day, unaware of the legacy that they contain. But as with all legends and tales, it is just waiting to be discovered. Epilogue, Version B. The Namikaze dynasty would rule until the end of the Shinobi Age. No one knows the whereabouts of their descendants, but one thing is for certain. Their exploits will not be forgotten, as they are recorded in the annals of history. The speaker was a woman in her late 20s, early 30s. Her audience was an archaeology class in Tokyo University. The woman was very voluptuous, her figure showing from her business suit and skirt combination. The pair of black heels on her feet. Short dark hair framed her face, the bangs covering one eye. Her uncovered lavender eye with pupil scanned the captivated audience. Their descendants have not died out, as they are still alive to this very day, unaware of the legacy that they contain. But as with all legends and tales, it is just waiting to be discovered, she said as she closed the book from which she was reading from. One of her students raised her hand. The professor acknowledged it with a nod. Yes, Miyabi. A freshman student asked her question. Professor Kujikawa, what happened to the refugees from Konoha? The professor, one Mayumi Kujikawa, shrugged her shoulders. No one knows for sure. Once they were on the boat to the unknown continent, they were never heard from again. More than likely, they had assimilated and settled there. A second student raised her hand. Professor, how do you know so much about this subject? Kujikawa smiled. I've been into ancient history for as long as I can remember. It's a passion of mine. She raised the book, which was titled History of the Unified West. The book itself was authored by both herself and her husband, who was a famous writer and lecturer of literature. Most people could not agree if it was fact or fiction, but what they did agree on was that it was a very good read. The ninja system in both East and West could not escape the changing times, and ended up collapsing, Kujikawa continued. But the Namikaze dynasty continued to rule, as they too changed with the times. In the end, it was not an uprising of the people that had brought the Namikaze clan to ruin. So what was it? Miyabi asked. Nature, Kujikawa replied. Mother Nature herself. The Lodja Mountains were always a volatile region, but in the reign of the last emperor, Naruto 12 Namikaze, the Lodja Mountains erupted, which triggered a massive earthquake. Days later, the unified West was engulfed in a tsunami, the land sinking into the ocean. Kujikawa remembered that even all too well. Both her and her husband had assisted in the evacuation of the imperial capital, knowing well that the days of the unified West were numbered. Aside from that, they also pilfered the Namikaze vaults underneath the imperial palace using several storage scrolls to seal up the chests of gold, but leaving more than enough cash to their clan, so that they can rebuild once again. They also took family heirlooms, jutsu scrolls and weapons that had been collected over the years. The reason being, Mayumi Kujikawa was just an alias, one of many in her long life. Her birth name was Hinata Hyuga, now Hinata Namikaze. Before another student could ask a question, the bell rang, signaling the end of class. But more importantly, the end of the day. It was time to go home. As the students piled out of the classroom, Hinata sat down in a chair and took a moment to reflect. Her hand rubbed absently on the mark where Naruto had bit her on their wedding night. It was shortly thereafter that Katami had taken both Naruto and Hinata to the side and explained the totality of the mark. As the both of you are mated, you will have fringe benefits, one of which is a long life. The Uzumaki were known for their long lifespans. When the both of you marked each other, that lifespan has increased 1,000-fold. Chirama, last she heard, the Nine-Tails ran a curio shop in Hokkaido. They had not aged a day over 30, resorting to using henges to make themselves look older, or in some cases, relocate to a different area entirely. This was the 7th time that Naruto and Hinata were back in Japan. The last place they spent 30 years in was in Hong Kong, where their descendants from Mocha's bloodline resided. Minato's bloodline resided in Japan, and one of them were in Hinata's class. Of course, aside from Mocha and Minato, Naruto and Hinata had countless children over the years. Some of their lines still existed, while others were extinct. Their daughter, Yumi, was a student in elementary school, a recent addition to the Namikaze bloodline. Over the thousands of years, Naruto and Hinata had many occupations, from assassin to daimyo to shogun to businessman. It was only recently that Naruto decided to write his memoirs, of which Hinata had been reading to the class. As for the other Jinchuriki, they were still alive as well. Udakata, they had left while he was in Hong Kong. Roshi and Han were in Okinawa. Yujiro had settled in Seoul. Gaara made his home in the Mojave Desert, posing as an insane survivalist. B was somewhere in South America, and Fu made her home in England. Gathering her things and placing them into a shoulder bag, Hinata had decided that she had spent enough time walking down memory lane. Her husband was waiting for her. Tokyo University campus. He stood in the midst of the students as they walked past him. 6 feet tall, with undisciplined reddish hair, blue eyes, his muscular frame hidden underneath the black long coat and dark business suit. It was winter and the Christmas holidays had just begun. The cold had never really bothered him, being a former Jinchuriki. He was known as Takeshi Kujikawa to most people, a respected professor of literature here at Todai, as well as an accomplished writer. But to a select few, he was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Naruto didn't have to wait long for his wife to make her presence known. Bundled up in her own overcoat and scarf, shoulder bag slung over one shoulder, Hinata Namikaze approached her husband with a smile on her face. "Been waiting long, love?" "Nah, just got here, Haim." "Ready?" he asked, extending his arm out. Hinata responded by slipping her arm through Naruto's own. The couple then walked off, until they were just another couple heading home for the holidays. Maybe one day, the Emperor will rise once again to lead. But now, he was just a family man ready to spend the holidays with his wife and daughter. The legacy of the Namikaze clan will continue.
So this was the end of the series. If you wanna watch more series like this, subscribe to my channel. Till then, we weeb offline.